Hello again. This is another preamble to another one of these Park Week episodes. Yes, evidently, through the making of this series, I've been experiencing some difficulties, not necessarily on the technical side of things, although, of course, those are indeed still apparent, but more on kind of the way in which I'm supposed to really convey my thoughts as to my opinions on these pictures. And I found that the best way really to do it, rather than going all over the place and referencing several different things across all my notes, is just to read the notes out as I've written them in the order in which I've written them. And I think maybe that would honestly be the best way to do it. It'll be more linear and less sporadic, and it would ultimately make for a better experience. I also want to apologize for the sort of mercurial nature of these videos and how they really seem to be uploaded at rather odd hours. Typically, when I do make videos, I tend to upload them in the AM hours, which is just after I wake up, because, well, you know, I have other things to be getting on with in my day. I don't necessarily want to be fiddling with this for most of it. But unfortunately, it seems that most of these episodes end up being quite long. And really, when I do go to upload them on YouTube, for some reason it takes like 3 to 4 hours to do so. I have no idea why that is. It didn't used to in the past, but maybe that's because I was using a different device when I was uploading these longer videos. I'm not sure, but honestly, I'm thankful that my Lost World review ended up being released before midnight last night. And it is my hope that I won't experience similar difficulties going forward. So, anyhow, I just thought I'd let you know of these little updates as to the series itself, and hopefully I'll be able to make a better product, because really I'm trying to get these out as quick as I can and, give you my actual thoughts on these pictures. And, well, let me just say this. I waited too long, and I'm going to have to record these either the day before or the day of release, as I'm doing today with this particular entry. So thank you very much. I hope you understand and enjoy. Hello and welcome to the third episode of Park Week, a series of reviews on this channel dedicated to each film in probably my favorite franchise of all time, Jurassic. Jurassic. That's it. Just Jurassic. Nothing else. Today, being the third episode of this little campaign of mine, I will of course be talking about the third film in this series, Jurassic Park 3 from 2001, which, as of this recording, is now 25 years of age. So, happy quarter century to Jurassic Park 3. A few things to note about this film before we get into the actual body of the review. Of all the films, really, in this franchise, this is the shortest in the series, clocking in at an hour and 32 minutes with credits and about maybe, 80 or so minutes without. So if you're thinking, oh my goodness, all of these Jurassic films are over 2 hours long, really, there really only should have been the first film. Why is it that all of these needless sequels are all 2 hours long? It's going to take forever to get through these. This comes as a welcome refreshment to those rather heady entries. Uh, it really serves as a very effective chaser and after-dinnerment to The Lost World, Jurassic Park, and also Jurassic Park itself. And really, if you throw it on after a day's work and are just exhausted, very much like I am right now, the thing will just fly by and you won't have to think too much about it, really. Also, one thing that is often neglected by many people in talking about this film is that this happens to be the only film in this series with an audio commentary track. It is, in my estimation, the gravest injustice in cinematic history that there exists no commentary for either Jurassic film directed by Spielberg. Mr. Spielberg, we are well aware of your preference to let the audience draw their own conclusions about your work. But at the end of the day, you're not getting any younger, and notwithstanding the endless amount of behind-the-scenes material you've provided for every one of these films, we still want to know what you think and what it was like actually to make them. Anyhow, descending from those heights, yes, indeed, this is the only film in the series to have a commentary track, and it's actually with a very unlikely source. It's from the special effects crew. You got Stan Winston, John Rosengrant, Michael Lantieri, and Dan Taylor, all four of those men, talking about how certain effects and shots and what have you, sort of kind of giving you a peek behind the curtain of the film, how certain things were pulled off. And really, it is quite fascinating. You'll come to find that as you watch at least these first three pictures, that the goal was not really to top Jurassic Park as being a better film, but really more kind of polishing the technical side of things, and to essentially make these dinosaurs move and perform in a superior way to each entry in this series. And if you actually look at this particular entry in this series, you will find indeed that these dinosaurs do look the best they have probably since The Lost World, and most likely for the rest of this series, in all candor. Additionally, the camaraderie and just general rapport is second to none. If you've seen these films enough times, really, when all's said and done, they become your mates, and you feel as if you've known them for years when you listen to this commentary track, because really they are your mates. And it's really nice to sit down with them for an hour and a half and just reminisce about certain things as to the making of this picture. Another thing worth mentioning about this particular entry is that of the films, this is the funniest in the series. If you, for once, remove the rather defensive and denunciatory lens worn when viewing these as, oh my goodness, this is just another sequel, another pointless sequel to this immaculate first film. If you do that just for this one viewing, you will find that there are a number of instances where you will be reduced to risibility intentionally, not unintentionally. We'll get into how that comes into play later in other entries in this series. But this film every once in a while you have to have a good laugh. And in this series, I believe that no other entry really allows you to have a better one than this right here. I won't necessarily detail all of the humorous bits, but you can figure out for yourself exactly why it is that these little bits of levity are indeed greatly appreciated. And one final thing that I'll mention. Typically, when people talk about this particular film, whether they're fans of this series or whether they are just purists who strictly revere the first film from 1993, it's usually accepted by all unanimously that this is pretty much the low point of the franchise, and really this seemed to be kind of the first instance where things started to go wrong, where it kind of diverged from what made Jurassic so great and groundbreaking, and how basically it sort of spelled the end of the series for 14 years, which basically it did. There was nothing for 14 years after this film was released, and how really, in retrospect, a lot of people, though it has had some more favorable transvaluation of late, a lot of people really tend to place this just above Dominion as really the lowest fodder that's ever been expectorated from this brand name. However, they fail to realize that really, just like with Lost World, but to perhaps a greater extent, it is a hazard of production. And you can read all you want online as to how this film came to be made, and how there were a number of different storylines that were proposed and rejected and what have you, and how really because of an imposition from the studio and really nothing else, they had to throw away their script about 5 weeks before shooting and actually just extemporize pretty much. Famously, many of the actors and the creatures were commissioned especially for a different movie than what we got. In fact, really, the fact that we got this picture at all is itself a miracle. And considering all of just the chaos, for lack of a better term, that went on behind the scenes in order to bring this picture to us, really, what we got objectively isn't that bad. I've said for many years that really the worst thing about this film is the score, purely because it's not by John Williams. I believe he was scoring Artificial Intelligence at the time and was unavailable, and so they had to get, I guess, an understudy by the name of Don Davis to compose the music. And even then, the music is still not too bad. It actually incorporates quite a lot of motifs from the original Jurassic Park, and actually ends up sounding rather nice. But you got to go in understanding that, and maybe even perhaps once you realize all of these for yourself, you'll go in and enjoy the picture just as I have almost every time I've seen it. So, if The Lost World was an answer to the question of what happened to Dr. Malcolm after the events of Jurassic Park, this film, Jurassic Park 3, is an answer to the question of what happened to Dr. Grant. Because, really, truthfully, of the two, more people are going to want to know what happened to Dr. Grant than Ian Malcolm. Really, that's just the truth. And then we find out, evidently, that since his experience in the first film and the trauma that he endured from it, that he's sort of really kind of disillusioned with life and almost kind of intimating that he's undergone some post-traumatic stress syndrome. And it really does influence his research into paleontology, specifically with his whole study in raptors and such, and really how he was just born witness to this unknowable truth and is trying to reconcile it in his own line of work. His whole worldview practically has been shattered by the experience of the first film. And that's something that most people don't realize when they view this third film, because they're thinking, okay, yeah, it's Dr. Grant. Why is it that he's somewhat less good, shall we say, than in the first film? I think that this line, delivered in a sort of press conference about his studies, really does capture that sense of just really bewilderment and kind of just, this is an overused expression, imposter syndrome that is experienced after headed to this park. And he says, dinosaurs lived 65 million years ago. What is left of them is fossilized in the rocks, and it is in the rock that real scientists make real discoveries. What John Hammond and InGen did at Jurassic Park is create genetically engineered theme park monsters. Nothing more and nothing less. So yes, it does make sense that he is, in a sense, kind of checked out, almost, in many instances of this film. It's no different from Ian Malcolm in A Lost World, and people should really realize that. And yes, I know people will bring this up. The early draft of him kind of taking on a pseudo Robinson Crusoe type role and studying the dinosaurs either on Isla Nublar or Isla Sorna and such. And really, if you actually watch this film, you come to realize that really you take on the sentiment of the director, Joe Johnston, who, by the way, has wanted to direct a Jurassic film pretty much since he came into knowing Spielberg and his stint on this series. He does a great job with it. And his opinion being that no, it is not realistic that he'd want to see these dinosaurs again. If anything, that line that I just read, and this one that I'll follow up with, no force on earth or heaven could get me on that island, really solidifies just how broken Dr. Grant is. Even though if you do view it casually, it doesn't seem that way as it's conveyed in the film. And one more point on Alan Grant and Ellie Sattler. A lot of the people who do attack this film say that really they should have wound up together. It was intimated that they would do so at the end of the first picture. Why is it that she's married to this Mark fellow? Would I like to have seen them together? Yes, but it works technically in the context of this film. And I want you to remember their state in this picture. Remember that for Saturday. And then watch Saturday's video and see how that is vindicated. That's all I'll say on that matter. And the actual means of getting Grant to the island, and how the Kirby's are really kind of secretly incompetent and whatnot, and are just have no idea really what they're doing in the situation, is itself really clever. It's actually the point that they're kind of stupid and have no idea what they're doing. These are civilians, for goodness sakes, who pose as these wealthy people to rescue their son from this dinosaur island. It makes sense that indeed you would put on this facade to get someone, arguably, who knows more about these creatures than anyone, who knows exactly what it's like to be in this situation, to help you out in that endeavor. And I guess I'll mention this too. I'm going all over the place, I know, but on the character of Tia Leone, does she scream a lot? Yes, but wouldn't you too in that situation? And people tend to forget this. After the discovery of Ben's corpse in the tree, she shuts up. So that's what, maybe about 30 minutes into the picture, and then she doesn't really scream incessantly. She doesn't turn into Fay Ray, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, it works. And really is kind of genius, because it's no different than Sarah Harding being unprepared for Isla Sorna in the Lost World. These people, much to Grant's chagrin, have no idea what's in store for them. And really, they have to learn the hard way. And have to come to take matters into their own hands, which really, honestly, makes this film so effective. And I know someone is going to want me to touch on this. I know Goonkick, for instance, talks about it all the time, but not necessarily in the right manner. The talking Velociraptor dream, I want to stress that point, that it's a dream. It is not an actual talking Velociraptor. Half the time I forget it's even in the movie, because I've seen this film enough times to basically tune that out. And really, for a scene that lasts in total about 7 seconds, it really is quickly forgotten once you get past it. And really, if you do your research, you may find that indeed there is a reason for that. It's not just tied to Grant's PTSD. There is actually quite a clever and little known reason to that raptor shouting his name. Something to think about. And when they actually get on the island and basically alight and try to find their son, it seems at first that this Spinosaur is essentially chasing these people for no reason. Let me tell you, there's a very good reason why. The reasons are threefold. It is simply an incursion of territory. It is indeed an animal. I'm sure that if you were to poke your nose into a lion's private affairs, that you would be chased out in a similar fashion, perhaps maybe even dispatched in a like fashion. Also, if you look carefully, it is injured by the plane's either propeller or the wing or something or other. It's injured by the plane, and it's even mentioned in interviews with, I think, William H. Macy and some other people, that indeed it is injured by the plane and is aggravated. I'm sure if you were hit at a plane going full speed, you yourself want to chase after it. You know, he's completely justified in that sense. And also, I'd hate to keep having you refer to behind the scenes material just to justify that really these films at the end of the day are not that bad. But there's actually quite a lot of interesting possible explanations and theories that never really got utilized in this film, but really do give a good reason for why this dinosaur is chasing them. And when this dinosaur chases them, goodness, he doesn't let up. And he really is, like the raptors in the first film, a supervening menace. And this is one thing that I will mention too, because it is one of the main reasons why people denigrate this film, the T-Rex versus Spino battle. I tell you, if you're like me and the Velociraptors were your favorite dinosaur in the series, this acts as a perfect retribution for them. A perfect form of payback, really. To where you're thinking, yeah, he's dead! Screw him! And I know it's not the same T-Rex as the first film, but really, that's what you're thinking. At least that's what I'm thinking when I watch this picture. And, how many times are you going to see that, really? A T-Rex being killed by a bigger and badder dinosaur. Of course, if you stay away from the satanic field of paleontology, you'll know that there is no bigger and badder dinosaur than the Spinosaurus. And speaking of the raptors themselves, let me say, in this picture, their intelligence is on full display here. They got a new sleek look with feathers. They got what seems like echolocation capabilities. They hunt in packs. They kill Mr. Noodle's brother, Mr. Noodle, and kind of use him as sort of a trap to lure people in. My goodness, these raptors, I tell you, they make the raptors that open doors in Jurassic Park 1 look like kindergartners by comparison. And indeed, they do harbor a vengeance against one particular person of the party. And they do indeed prove merciful by the end of the picture, you'll find. Because really, at the end of the day, they're not monsters. They're animals. And most people tend to forget that about this picture. And, I just figured I may as well remind them of that. Anyhow, when the raptors have actually segregated everyone for a little bit and have Grant cornered basically from all sides in this one patch of jungle, Eric, the I don't want to say child because he's technically older than that. I would say just kid that these people are looking for, I will say, is another better kid character than Lexington. Because he actually does stuff. He throws that gas grenade. He rescues Dr. Grant. He has survived on this island for 8 weeks in an overturned water truck. Lexington couldn't do that. Kelly Malcolm, she probably could do that. Maybe kick another raptor here or there. But goodness me. He may well be the best child in this series. And his description of Malcolm, particularly reading his first book, is just entirely apt. It was kind of preachy and too much chaos. Everything's chaos. It seemed like the guy was kind of high in himself. And Grant's reply, I must admit, is mine as well. Well, that's 2 things we have in common. And on the subject of the jungle itself, let me tell you, stage 12 in this picture, and for those of you who are fans of this series, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Stage 12 is a better looking jungle, more, shall I say, unique looking jungle than Kauai and the Kailua Ranch of the first picture. I mean, goodness, I haven't seen any jungle that looks like Stage 12 does. Really, it's just wonderful. And when they eventually reunite, and you hear that satellite phone jingle from inside the Spinosaurus, which, by the way, I've always wanted to set one of my mobile phones to that jingle. I've never been able to figure out how to do it. Perhaps I need an older cell phone in order to actually be able to do it. One of these days, I'll let you know when that does happen, but I always wanted to do that. When they finally do reunite and elude the Spinosaurus, and another thing too, why is it that it can't break through a simple steel door when it just broke through a fence? You want to know why? Because it just broke through a bloody fence! Ridiculous. People really don't pay any attention to these movies at all. And I tell you, criticism is carelessness when it comes to a lot of these Jurassic Park films. And I know I said park there, but any of these Jurassic films. Criticism is carelessness. That'll be my sentiment, probably, throughout the whole of this thing. But when they actually do reunite and elude the Spinosaurus, we get possibly one of the best sequences in the entire franchise. And I'm talking about the aviary. The scene with the pteranodons. And how, my goodness, if ever this series edged towards horror more, it probably doesn't exist really in any capacity, except maybe in The Lost World. It was a scene from the first novel that was meant to be in the first film. It was meant to be in the second film. And now it's finally here in the third film. And it works really, really well. Now, if you think that this film is basically just all running from dinosaurs and just cheap action sequences, I want you to refer to the astronomers and astronauts discussion. Consult that, then tell me there are no ideas posited within this film. Spoken by Dr. Alan Grant, as with that first line I mentioned. I may as well bring up a few other lines in this film that I really liked, which, just like Malcolm in the Lost World, many of the best lines in this movie come from Dr. Grant. He's chatting with, I suppose, his business partner or digging partner, Billy. He's asked if you like computers. He says, I like the abacus, Billy. And then another line here, kind of just really sort of relating to the whole situation. Reverse Darwinism, survival of the most idiotic. Let's see, looking back through my notes here. Oh, I would be remiss if I did not mention these two, because these two lines have to be some of the best in the entire series. Teo Leone is asking him, is this how you make dinosaurs? And he says, no, this is how you play God. Perfectly encapsulates the conceit of this series. Heavy-handed though it is, it's delivered exceptionally well. And this line, this final line that I'm going to mention from Dr. Grant, can be applied to a lot of things. Some people even apply it to this film itself in criticizing it, but you want to know something? I could apply it easily to those critics. Some of the worst things imaginable have been done with the best intentions. It's brilliant. Brilliant. And for those who say that, you know, with each sequel, the awe and wonder will be fading fast, at an hour and 9 minutes and 34 seconds, you get a little bit of awe and wonder, for those who say there isn't any. And it ends at about an hour and 10 minutes and 56 seconds. So, just saying. More things about just, general kind of blasting of these critics here. The scene with the dung heap in this film they have problems with, yet they don't bat an eye at the one in the first. Come on. And also the whole thing with at the end with the Spinosaur in the boat being juxtaposed with Barney and such. People think that's absurd. People really have no appreciation for dark humor. This is the funniest film in the series, without a doubt. And it grieves me to have to rag on my friends Ahab and Guntik, particularly Ahab, in that he said that the film kind of ended. And you're thinking, oh, really? That's it? That seems kind of abrupt. Let me tell you, the ending was clearly not, again, criticism is carelessness. You have to really be paying attention, because people who say the ending is abrupt clearly haven't been paying attention to the film. They were trying to get to the coast the whole time in eluding these dinosaurs and trying to rescue Eric and what have you. And they did. And they got rescued by the army and got brought back to civilization. So, really, it just amazes me that so many people can be just so inattentive to these pictures, and they presume inattention to be just grounds for criticism. They just, maybe it's because they haven't seen these films as many times as I have, I don't know, but it's just insane to me. And even the shot at the end with the pteranodon sort of flying off into the distance, yes, it kind of really doesn't make that much sense. You're thinking, where on earth are these creatures going? Is this going to be the setup for the next Jurassic film? It probably would have been, honestly, had not things gone the way that they did. But, we just have gone through just an hour and 20-some minutes of non-stop, ceaseless adventure. And we end on a beautiful shot like that to where, you know what? It doesn't matter if that doesn't make much sense. I had a good time. And in terms of final thoughts, I'm going to have to quote Sam Neill and his assessment of this particular film. I really like the third film. I'm very proud of it. And I think it works really well. It moves like an express train. I think it's a bloody good film. And as a result of that, I'm going to have to give it an 8.5 out of 10. Just really a fun, non-stop adventure that'll keep you at the edge of your seat. And really, I'd hate to say it, but if you just didn't refer to this film as Jurassic Park 3, if the title was completely wiped from this picture, which we'll talk about that when we get to it with one of these pictures, I think you'll come to appreciate it too, for what it is, and not denigrate it for what it isn't, because I know I have. That is it. This is, I don't know how many times I tried to record this. It's just I've been very tired today and haven't necessarily figured out how to express these thoughts. But now I have, and so now I can move on with the rest of my evening. I thank you very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Tune in tomorrow for my review of Jurassic World. And basically kind of sort of my reassessment of that particular picture, because, well, I'll say this, my thoughts on it 10 years ago are not my thoughts on it today. And it may just surprise you what I have to say about that picture. But then again, knowing me, knowing my relationship with these films, and knowing just how I am generally, if you've seen really any of these videos, maybe you won't be surprised at all. But anyway, thank you. I'm going to go ahead and string this all together and hopefully get this out before midnight. Cheers.